This Thrive Loud episode is brought to you by Hinge Consulting. Success on Amazon hinges on well-executed strategies. Contact Hinge Consulting to learn about total Amazon channel management and to see if your business has what it takes to grow over 300% over the next 12 months. That's Hinge Consulting at hingeconsulting.co. Today on Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Because what makes us all so upset in life with others and situations is unfulfilled expectations. So I change my expectations.
Now I'm getting really excited. Okay, this is the part where we're going to get loud.
Holy crap, here we go.
I like telling stories.
I learn best through experiences.
Everything I do is because of everything I did.
Talk about having maximum impact while having a ton of fun.
When you can net through that, what you do leave behind for your listener will have more impact.
Wow, bring it on.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. Today on Thrive Loud, we bring you award-winning filmmaker, speaker, forgiveness coach, focused on the mother-daughter relationship and achieving no more drama with mama. Thrive Loud listeners, I bring you Gayle Kirschenbaum. Gayle, how are you today?
I'm good, Lou. It's great to be on. Thank you for inviting me.
The Thrive Loud listeners will get a chance to realize that, everything that can and will go wrong in a podcast can happen, but we're dealing with some construction in the background, some funny loud noises, and that's how we got off to a start. Maybe we'll share some of this at the end of the show as for good humor of those who want to listen all the way through. However, I just recently met Gayle. She's a member of NSA in New York City. And we've had some wonderful conversations. I've also had the pleasure of hearing her speak. And she has a great story, a great journey, and a really important message that I think this community that we have here who is thriving each and every day will really appreciate. So, Gayle, I think it's important maybe you give a little bit of your journey and kind of help guide the Thrive Loud community a little bit of your story and specifically how you became a forgiveness coach and how this became the focus of what you do. And I'll interject appropriately. That sound good?
Sounds great. Okay, so I spent my career behind the camera. I was producing and directing television, creating shows. And along the way, I moved back to New York. That was in Los Angeles. And ended up turning the camera myself, first with my dog at the time, who was a little Shih Tzu. And as you can imagine, when you walk the streets of New York with a cute dog, it's a big head turner. And I ended up making a film called A Dog's Life, a Documentary. And during the making of that film, which started off to be a short, funny, wacky movie, I had a camera built for her. And no, it wasn't GoPro. It was years before GoPro existed. And it was a funny little film about a single woman and her dog hitting the streets of New York looking for love. And in the midst of shooting it, 9/11 happened, and we're right downtown on the Hudson River, just 30 blocks north of the Twin Towers. So as the world changed in a minute, the film changed in a minute, and we threw off the doggy cam, and she became a therapy dog and started doing amazing work. So that ended up on HBO, and it put me in front of the camera, and I felt at home. It was like, okay, I'm not an actress, but I'm me. I'm just being me, and I for some reason, got a lot of press from a New York Times spread to every talk show. And so at that point, I said to my mother, who had wanted me to have a nose job since the bump on my nose started growing probably at age 14 or thereabouts, that I was middle-aged. And I said, okay, Mom, you've wanted to get me to a plastic surgeon's office. I will go to 3 for a consultation as long as I can have a camera crew along with me. And she couldn't care less about that. And what ended up was a funny little movie called My Nose about her relentless campaign to get me to have a nose job. So what I didn't expect was the reaction. A woman who's a film critic got her hands on it and said, could I put it in the festivals? I said, sure. And it just took off, all of 13 minutes long. And when it played as a short, it played with other films. And when I was invited to be on a panel, I'd be with the other filmmaker or filmmakers. And I'd get off the stage and there was always this line in front of me. And it got to the point I knew what people were going to say because they said the same thing. I love your nose. Don't touch it. I can't stand your mother. How do you talk to her? And I'm thinking you have hardly seen anything in that little funny short. And 3 is let me tell you my story. And as you know, we all have a story. So it wasn't necessarily about somebody's nose, but it was about trauma from childhood that these adults were still living with and holding on to. And I remember a woman, she must have been well in her 60s, opening up her coat to show me her weight issues and attributing it to her long deceased mother. And that's when I went, 1, I'm not alone, and B, a lot of people are in pain.
Gayle, I want to jump in here real quick here because this is really interesting, and I've seen your message about how the relationship between the mother and daughter is unique, much different than the mother and son, even the father and son, or father-daughter. And you've captured that in many of your speeches, and obviously what you're about to lead to in talking about the movie. Up till that point, with all of that frustration, had it always been something that has bothered you throughout your life, or was it something that you recognized from the realization and hearing you weren't alone?
No, I mean, it had bothered you. You're talking about my relationship with my mother, right? Not
exactly.
My nose. Okay.
Yes, not your nose. With your mother.
I just have to get that off the plate here because my nose has never bothered me, even though at the time and place I grew up, having a nose job was almost a rites of passage for my community and for the women. No, my relationship was fraught with my mother, and not just with her, with the rest of my family. And I realized I was not alone, and I realized I needed to resolve this relationship to move on and have a happy life. So, yes.
So in the weirdest of ways, you began to do this not behind the doors in a closed therapy session. You did it in front of the camera. And talk about how this project came to be and how you transposed this message and the research you've done to really bring this story and this message to life.
Right. So when I saw the reaction from the audience, I have to just back up and say one thing, that when my nose played in Washington, D.C., we ended up on the cover of the Washington Post style section. And one of the many things my mother had said about my nose when I was growing up was that it looks like the Indian on the Buffalo nickel. Well, she does kind of have a point. So they had this big photo, which is really added my short film, My Nose, of my profile next to the profile of the Indian's nose. And the journalist's first line into that article is, if you have a mother like Gayle Kirschenbaum, you better get yourself into psychoanalysis.
Oh my goodness.
So Mom read it and she went, great. Bad press is better than no press. I'm on the cover of the Washington Post in true narcissistic style. So I knew that I decided that I had to go on a mission to resolve my relationship with my mother with the effort and the purpose also to help other people. And as a filmmaker and a storyteller and a woman who has this huge archive of footage, because my father started shooting on 8mm footage right before I was born. And then the next video footage is me in my mother's arms for many years. And then I took over when he stopped. So I knew at this point, and my mother was in her late 80s, she had become very funny, the queen of the one-liners, no censor, that she apparently didn't care about attention, no matter what kind of attention it was, based on her reaction to that article. And 3, I wanted to resolve my relationship and I wanted to help other people. So I said to her, would you be willing to go on a mission together with me to resolve our relationship in front of the cameras? And she said yes. So that was the beginning of this adventure. And the result was the feature documentary, Look at Us Now, Mother, which is out widely now on several platforms.
So I want to ask this question, because before we get into how this is helping other people, when you watch the movie and you look back at it, which is always difficult, by the way, whether you're an author and you're reading your own book or you're a filmmaker and you look at your own film, since it is centered around you, do you go through the cycle of emotions that from where you were and when you were in pain to feeling relieved and improving the relationship with your mother as the film progresses?
Well, I would say and I actually edited the film, so I sat with that for a long time. I would say that for many, many screenings, I probably could not get through it without crying because it brought up a lot of stuff. But I need to let you know, and I'd like your listeners to know, that as a storyteller, I was struggling to think, how am I going to take my audience back and not just sit there and complain about my childhood and sound like a victim, because who cares about victims? And then I said, oh, you know what? I have kept diaries my entire life since I was quite young. So it took me several months to find the box. I thought it might have been thrown out. And I sat down and opened up these books. And by the way, I've been drawing, we're each born with different talents, and I was born gifted in drawing. So I was always drawing. So my diaries always had drawings in them. Mm-hmm. Some looking like Edward Monk's, paintings, A Very Tortured Soul. And so I sat down and read those diaries, and I actually relived the trauma. And as a result, I got sick. I developed an autoimmune disease. And it came out through my skin, which was pretty horrible. So that lasted for 4 years. And I went to many, many doctors, the whole Western medicine world, heads of I'm here in New York, heads of dermatology all over, and nothing they did helped me. And then I sat down, and I was known for my hands. People were saying, Gayle, I found this cream. I have creams from all over the world. Nothing helped me. And then I said, I got myself sick due to my stressful emotions. I'm going to heal myself. Excuse me. And I did, by changing my thoughts, by putting a whole sort of program together. And one day I was looking at my hands and I was saying, oh my God. So we're so powerful. And so that's my message. We can get ourselves sick and we can heal ourselves.
So talking about healing ourselves, I want to flip this to the other part of the equation. How has your mother changed since this message of the film came out? Obviously, has she felt any guilt or feelings to what happened earlier in your life and any of the drama that went on early versus where she is today? I mean, I don't know, has she absorbed it in the same way that you have gone through the change?
No. Because my mother is a very, very intelligent person, probably one of the smartest people I know, but she has no emotional intelligence. I'm probably all emotional intelligence. So her wiring is very different. And that's part of my message. We can't expect somebody to behave a way that they're incapable of. They don't have the tools. But what has happened is I've changed towards her. And so by me changing, instead of reacting to her insults and whatnot, I let them roll off of me because I reframed how I looked at her and how I look at her. And by doing that, and I ended up being able to get to a place where I actually feel compassion. Mm-hmm. So the roles have reversed. And no, I don't hear any of the criticisms, only due to how I reacted. And does she think she did anything wrong when she raised me? No. She says, I did the best I could. She gets up, she's done a lot of Q&As and she's become a bit of a celebrity in her own time. She gets cited. She's down in Southern Florida, played in many, movie theaters and festivals, and they stop her and go, you're the mother. You're the most likable bitch. I don't know if I can say that here. Could I? Yes, and so she's become a mom star. Right. Yeah. So anyway, I'm not here to vilify her. I didn't make the movie to vilify her. I made it to help people. And
so Yeah, I was going to talk about this in Helpful because you have a 3-step way of helping people understand forgiveness. Can you share with the Thrive Loud listeners? Because from whether it's you're putting your business hat on, you're thinking about your life, your own family, your own relationship with your mother, everybody has one. So there are people that are always trying to figure out ways to move forward in these situations and how to forgive. Can you share with the Thrive Loud community your process on how you move through forgiveness?
Right. So I did a TED Talk, and when I speak, due to the time, I've narrowed it down to the 3 majors, but I just need to people know there's 7, which they're all downloadable and out there. But I just, due to our time, I'm going to focus on the 3. So, and I apply these steps to any situation and anybody else, and I could flip a situation around, a difficult person or whatever. So the first thing is we need to look at that person. And so let's say in my case now, your mother or your parent, because that primary relationship is the most important relationship to resolve. Because if we don't resolve that relationship, we're hanging on to anger and it's affecting every other aspect of our life. So in my case, it's my mother. So number 1 is understand. I needed to understand her. Like, why is she like this? It was really, it was my childhood was Mommy Dearest, the Joan Crawford story, of which is in the movie.
No more wire hangers.
Right. Well, that scene was literally out of my life. I mean, we had that closet scene. It was uncanny. So I needed to understand, why does she look at me and this rage comes out and I'm doing nothing? And I dug into her past, and by doing that, and by the way, she's of the generation that you don't hang your dirty laundry. She doesn't remember things. So I did a lot of research. I dug up from genealogy records, finding family members, and found out about the pain she suffered as a child, and essentially the childhood she never had. Financial hardships, the untimely death of her little sister, her father's 2 attempted suicides due to the depression that she found him the first time, all these things. So by doing that, I saw a wounded child. And I do want to tell your listeners one thing that was very much an aha moment. When I lived in LA, I met a woman who had a challenging childhood, and in her healing, she became a facilitator of a psychological board game. And she asked me to play it one day with another woman. And the only thing I actually remember from that day is when I threw the dice, it landed somewhere. And she said, stand up, close your eyes. Imagine your mother as a little girl. Well, at that point, I had dug up the pain and hardships of my mother's childhood, and I saw a wounded little girl. And then she said, imagine yourself as a little girl. And I knew I was a wounded little girl. And then she said, you both come together. And that was a huge, huge light bulb moment, because she was no longer my mother. She was a wounded little girl. So that leads me to step number 2. So now, by understanding her past, I now was able to, step number 2, reframe how I looked at her. Okay. So now I didn't look at her as my mother, who should love and adore me because that's what mothers are supposed to do and nurture their children. I looked at her as a child who was wounded herself. And by changing how I looked at her, I changed my expectations, because what makes us all so upset in life with others and situations is unfulfilled expectations. So I changed my expectations. So when the zingers would come out or the insults would come out, they just bounced off of me, because I saw her as a child as a big baby who needed love herself. And that leads me to number 3, because by doing that, I actually was able to get to a place of feeling compassion for her, and I was able to forgive her.
Pretty powerful. And I like it. And it's a hard thing to do for anyone, yet it is an important piece, because, sometimes holding all that other stuff back holds you back from all the things you want to do, whether it's make a movie, whether it's let your business run, whether it actually even can make you sick, as you talked about, which is really not what we want to be. We want to be thriving each and every day and doing the best we can be, and be able to look into yourself like this. Gayle, pretty powerful stuff. And I want to ask you, by coming up with this method and helping to share with others, tell me how you feel when you help others and get this message across and see people that can connect with what you do and how it helps them and they could understand the value of what you bring?
I feel so blown away that I could help other people because, this wasn't my original mission in life. I'm a creative person. But when I get responses back, I know my film is powerful because I am very humbled by the constant fan mail and messages, even from celebrities. Even Susie Orman saw it the day it opened up. And she tweeted to me and her 1.5 million followers, thanked me. It helped me a lot. Everyone must see the film. Of course, I Googled her past. So it doesn't matter. I mean, you have a business audience here. It doesn't matter how much money or wealth we achieve in our life, or children or grandchildren or homes or whatever. That's not going to, money's not going to bring us happiness. We can have a lot of wealth. I know a lot of very famous, successful people who are not happy people. The key to happiness is figuring out the secret to finding forgiveness. I say that is the biggest gift we can give ourselves. Because if we are still hanging on to that anger, resentment, it's affecting everything. So yes, when I get results from people who say, Gayle, one woman in my last workshop, which now I've gone virtual because I can reach people all over, which is great. She said, she and her husband challenged with her mother and she twisted it around. She used my tools and she ended up saying, you're not going to believe it. I spent Saturday shopping with my mother and we actually had a good time. I was like blown away. So yes, it's very, very rewarding for me.
That's great stuff. Gayle, a question I ask almost every guest on Thrive Loud, and this is an interesting one because I think the listeners are going to love this. When you have trouble thriving, who do you turn to get back on the thriving track?
Well, are we talking about the personality in the film that was made about this person?
No, I want to know when you personally have trouble, in everyone has a bad day. Everyone has something and we always turn to something. Some people meditate. Some people turn to their best friends. Some people turn to running or physical exercise. I'm curious to know what you turn to get yourself back into what you do best.
Well, it's sort of interesting. I will tell everyone, I actually throw I Ching every morning. And it's, when those coins lay out and I read what I've thrown, it's like, that's the correction. It's always right on for me. That's the correction I need for the day. And then I meditate. Okay, and nice. I take my 20 minutes and I just close, I get my thoughts together and I quiet my mind.
Awesome. I love it. Gayle, give us all of the places that we can find you, if that's okay. All the places we could learn about you, what's coming up, what you're thinking about for any new films or new projects, all that stuff so that everybody can learn more about Gayle. It's better when it comes from you. And a little bit about any type of events that you have on the calendar in the near future. Okay.
So I'm actually heading out next week to speak at a conference. I've been speaking at mental health conferences, which is kind of funny that the mental health field has taken on this film and my talk. So I'll be out in, where am I going? To Portland, Oregon for the Western Psychological Association. But what's coming up on May 12th that it's open to the public, and I take very few people, is my next virtual workshop, which people can log on to and find out about if they go to my Gayle Kirschenbaum. I have several websites at this point. Gayle Kirschenbaum, which is Gayle with a Y.
We'll spell it out and we'll provide the link.
Okay. Gayle Kirschenbaum, right. People get Kirschenbaum, how do you spell it? GayleKirschenbaum.com. And if they just go over to the workshop page, they can read about it. They can watch testimonials. And it's May 12th. And there's a few spots open. And it seems to be a very effective live virtual workshop that by the end of the day, nobody wants to hang up. Relationships have formed. It becomes a love fest. And I'm very excited that I was worried about going virtual because I like to create intimacy in safe places. And everybody says they like it better. They feel safer. They're at home in their pajamas. and I could do breakout sessions. So yeah, I'm very, very excited because, as a person who travels too, I could be doing it anywhere. So that's great. So those are the two main things. And then, yeah, I'm busy with, so something totally about thriving in life is I love to sail. I find sailing and traveling very healing. I've been traveling since I'm 15 around the world. And believe me, I've done a lot of traveling now with my mother, which is interesting. So what I have coming up in the summer that we have 2 spots available is a sailing adventure. We're sailing. I did it last summer and people wanted to go back. I chartered a sailboat, a 46-foot Bavaria sailboat, and we're sailing the Stockholm archipelago. We're going to island hop. Oh, wow. And that's August 15th to the 22nd, and it's a blast. So people could reach me through Gayle, that website, and just, indicate that you're interested in that, and I'll respond to that and send the details. So, and then I'm working on a lot of other stuff. I have a TV series and things like that in the works. So, yeah.
All right. Well, awesome. And we will continue to keep all the Thrive Loud listeners in tune with Gayle, who's modest in her impressive film stuff that she's done. And I think it's pretty cool. And I think it's great what you're doing. By the way, it's on a bucket list to get up to where you're going and then cruise in Stockholm and Norway. And too bad I'm taking my kid to college right around that time. But otherwise, that would have been fun.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I lived there years ago, and it's absolutely beautiful. And coincidentally, the guy who's the captain is an American who's a camera guy from television. So yeah, it's a beautiful. I recommend anybody go explore that area.
Gayle Kirschenbaum, I love asking people involved in the film industry this question because I want to hear where it goes. What is your all-time favorite movie?
Okay, it's Gandhi.
And why? Yeah, why Gandhi?
Well, because he's such an inspiring person. I mean, what he has done and how he was able to transform that country and the mindset of the people. I'm all about that. It's the power of the mind and how we change how we think. And our mind is the most powerful organ we have, and it controls everything. So what he did is unbelievable. So yes, he's my hero.
I love it. Gayle Kirschenbaum, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud.
And thank you very, very much.
And to all the Thrive Loud listeners out there, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. Connecting.
My God. Exactly.
I'm not worried. I'm not really worried.
Hold on a minute. Exactly. They're like right at my window. I wonder if I should go into the bathroom. I cannot believe this.
What are they doing? But by the way, that's classic. And it doesn't matter because we record this on 2 tracks, Gayle, but that's the funniest thing I think I've ever heard. Like the hammering began as I started doing it. Here's what I promise you. We will put this little piece we'll put this as an Easter egg at the back of this episode because that was the funniest thing I think I've ever heard. Okay,
I wonder if I literally should go into the bathroom. I can't. They're now outside my window, but
Who is that guy? What is he doing?
First of all, I can't see because I'm all taped up and the scaffolding. Exactly. This is unbelievable. They are doing. I live in a building that's from 1898. It was Bell Labs. It was where sound for movies and all this other stuff was developed. And they are doing a lead abatement. So they are literally on scaffolding. My windows are sealed. I can't even look there. But exactly as you started to talk, so I can't see what's going on. I'm wondering if I go into my bathroom.
You may have a little bit of an echo. Let's see. Yeah, go into your bathroom.
Well, hold on a minute because
we're recording all of this, so don't worry about it.
Okay, but you're not going to use it. I pray. Let me get a plug. Hold on a minute.
Oh, this is unbelievable. That was.
Wait. Hold on a minute.
It's a little echoey. You're better off in the other room.
Wait. Hold on a minute. I took the headset off. So
No, you're-
before I get a plug, tell me if this is going to work for you. I'm going to shut the door. And
Let's see. Oh my God, that was maybe the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. Right at the beginning, like right on cue.
Okay, I'm shutting the door. Okay, how does this sound? Is this okay?
Oh, a little bit better. Okay, it's okay. We'll work. This will work. All right, I'll hit it.
Let me get a plug because
Okay. Yeah, you may run out of power.
yes, yeah. All right. Good thing I did all the electrical in my loft, so I have plugs in my bathroom. I redid my whole loft. Hold on a second. All right, done here.
The Thrive Loud listeners are experiencing, this is the pre-record for the interview with Gayle Kirschenbaum, who it seems that in her home, there's enough construction going on. Hammers, right at the beginning of the show. Yeah, there's.
This is like reality TV, right? Hold on a minute. I'm plugging you.
This is reality podcasting.
Yes, reality podcast. Okay.
Oh,
Then I'm going to get the plug into the wall. So
don't electrocute yourself. No toilets or showers or sink activity here. Oh my God, classic.
I still hear it. I'm going to put. All right. How's this sounding? Is this okay?
You sound fine. You sound good. We'll be good.
Okay, good. All right. We can take a shower. I'm in the bathroom. Listen, I want this to be a really clean podcast, so I'm in the bathroom.
I don't know. Okay, so I'll click it off. You take a breath. You ready? This is fun. Okay.